What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I know the lighting is hot garbage right now because I have my window open, because today we are going to be going over in depth the Nintendo Switch Lite. So I'm going to be busting out the tripod. I'm going to be doing kind of that over the top view that I did in my actual unboxing video for the Nintendo Switch Lite. So I think the lighting is so much better with the natural light coming in through the window when I do these type of videos. It really lights it up. My normal light that I have over here kind of sucks. So I do apologize for the lighting at this segment of the video, but we won't be here that long. Like I said, today we are going to be going in depth over the Nintendo Switch Lite and my thoughts on this little handheld device. And it's just, there's a lot of things to cover. I've seen people kind of go back and forth on whether they like it or not, but I personally have had a great experience with this, and we're going to cover all of it in this video here, so let's get into it. So here we are. We got our setup, we got our Switch Lite in our hand here, so now we can fully review this bad boy. So first and foremost, I'm a big fan of all the colors that came out with the Nintendo Switch Lite, and it's not really the biggest review thing, but the colors are actually really cool. Not to mention, in the promotional material for the Nintendo Switch Lite, all of the colors seemed really bright, and it's not exactly the case. They're kind of more of like a matte finish, which I like way more. I thought it was going to be kind of glossy, like the Nintendo DS Lite, where it was like glossy and got a lot of fingerprints on it, but that was not the case at all, and I'm a big fan of that. As you can see, I've got a case on it, so you might not be able to tell quite as well. So the first thing we're actually going to talk about over like the colors of the system is the way that the system actually handles and feels. So relative to a normal Joy-Con, the buttons feel a lot better in my opinion. They have a lot more give to them relative to the normal Joy-Con, where you just kind of like barely poke the button and it activates, where these actually, they go into the system a little bit. I don't know if I can get it so it's actually visible, but they go in a little bit. And on top of that, I like the trigger buttons more on the Switch Lite. Let me see if I can't get a good angle here. I don't have the equipment for these type of videos, but I like doing them. They kind of come out a bit more. See, and it's kind of clicky, kind of reactive. These click. These really click. And I like to feel way more. And the analogs and the buttons all have this sort of powdery feeling to them, where I think the analogs on the standard Joy-Con are just kind of, they're kind of sticky in a way. The rubber's a stickier thing, where these are kind of powdery and you don't really get stuck on them, and I like that. That could just be a me thing. Additionally, rather than having these little buttons, we have an actual D-pad on here, and the D-pad is awesome. That is such a good thing if you're playing Mario Maker or something. Like, I just love having the actual D-pad on this thing. So the next big thing is the actual size of the system, and I covered this in my actual unboxing video of the Switch Lite, but the size is drastically smaller than the standard Nintendo Switch. And this makes it really good for people who, like me, have to do a lot of traveling. I'm a commuter in college, so I constantly am on the go. So being able to take this little guy with me rather than this hulking thing is phenomenal. It's my favorite thing, and I played this in handheld a lot. I've played my standard Switch in handheld a ton. The thing is, and I think anyone who's actually played a Nintendo Switch and had it in their hands, is because these Joy-Cons detach, the sides, when you're holding them, they feel like they could give. It doesn't feel like a solid unit. And it constantly made me super careful and cautious when I took my Nintendo Switch out, because I didn't want to break it. Obviously, I am a Nintendo Switch heavy channel. I cover other things, but Nintendo Switch is my main focus. So if I took this out in public and I broke it, I wouldn't have anything to cover on my channel. Whereas with this, it is one solid single unit. It feels a lot better in your hands than the standard Nintendo Switch. The Joy-Cons are permanently attached, so you don't have that feeling like these are going to fall off and give if you put too much pressure on them. So that's another nice thing about it, is it just feels like an overall more solid unit than the original Nintendo Switch in a handheld form. Now, a lot of people were thinking the Switch Lite was going to cause problems with games like Fire Emblem or things of that nature that had tiny text. And I can say I have not encountered any games where the text has been too tiny for me to play. I've played Fire Emblem on this. Let me boot it up. Let's just see what we've got. But I've played Dead by Daylight on here. Let's get this up. I've played Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. I know this doesn't look the best. I've done Goose Game. I've played Fire Emblem, Monster Hunter, Super Mario Maker. Tons of games that I've played on this thing. And I have not encountered any game where the text is too tiny for me to read. And I've had an overall really good experience playing on this. Now, I will go and say that not all games are best played on the Nintendo Switch Lite, and I will cover that more a bit later, but I got some other things I'd like to talk about first. So the big thing with the Switch Lite is they also advertised a better battery life than the standard Nintendo Switch model, and I have noticed that. My original Nintendo Switch here was I'd probably get 2.5, 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours, depending on the game I was playing in handheld mode, which isn't a lot of time. But with this Nintendo Switch Lite, I've noticed that I can get anywhere from 4 to 5, 5.5 hours, depending on what game I'm playing. I actually played Link's Awakening. I finished like the last 4 or 5 dungeons in it in one sitting, and then I also beat Goose Game all in that sitting before I ever had to consider putting it on the charger. So this thing can actually last a good amount of time. Whereas this, I couldn't take it out and play it for extended periods of time. I'd get maybe, like I said, 2.5 hours, especially playing like games like Fire Emblem. I was getting 2.5 hours out of this bad boy, and then it'd have to be docked. And I think with the newer models, that isn't such a problem. I don't have the newer model. This is the original Nintendo Switch model. So this problem could have been fixed, but with the standard Nintendo Switch model, which I own, that was a problem, and that's why this, being able to take it with me all about, was such a nice thing. Another big thing people have been complaining about has been the ability to transfer saves from your standard Nintendo Switch, your main Nintendo Switch, over to your Switch Lite. And I just want to say that people have been crying about this and complaining about this, and it's just not necessary. I plan on doing a full video covering all of that information on how to transfer your saves back and forth, because for me it's been an overall seamless process. I've had zero problems playing a game over here on my normal Switch and then transferring the save over here to play a game on this. It is really not that hard of a process. You can do it with just about every game on the system, except for games like Dead by Daylight or Fortnite where they have their save files on an external server. So I haven't had any problems, but I've seen a lot of people complaining about it, and it baffles me. So I want to do a full video covering the ability to transfer back and forth because it isn't that difficult. On that same note, I don't think the Switch Lite is for everyone, and the reason I say it's on the same note as the save transfers is not everyone's going to have 2 Switch models to transfer back and forth to. I 100% believe if you already have a Nintendo Switch, you don't need one of these. It is not a necessary purchase for you. I got it mainly because my girlfriend has been very addicted to my Nintendo Switch. She's playing a lot of Super Mario Odyssey and Super Mario Maker on it, and I am a channel that covers games on it, and I need to play the games and be able to beat them, and I can't do that if my girlfriend is spending hours on my Nintendo Switch. So I figured, what the hell, I'll get the new Nintendo Switch Lite. I can cover it in videos, and I can play all my games so I can get these reviews done in a more timely manner, and it's been a good purchase. But if you are just a normal gamer who wants to play Nintendo Switch, you do not need both systems. I feel this system here is for someone who doesn't have a Nintendo Switch and wants to get into the Nintendo Switch's library of games. I think this is a luxury item. It's definitely not a necessity if you have a Nintendo Switch. However, I do feel it's just a really awesome system to have. So if you do have extra cash lying around and you do want to have 2 Switch models, if you're like me and you have a girlfriend who hogs your one Switch, or you just have a brother or sister who wants to play Switch and you want to have multiple Switch models, this is an awesome way to get into a Switch and have an additional model available for a cheaper price. So I did mention earlier that I don't feel every game is best played on the Nintendo Switch Lite. And I have had some games on here that just didn't feel as good as if you were playing them on a standard Nintendo Switch with it docked and a Pro Controller. Games like that are things like Daemon X Machina, where there's a lot of button inputs and there's a lot of things you got to do. And with the Switch Lite, it's very tiny. It's hard to get to all the buttons you need to press to play. I have been able to luckily change my key bindings around in this, so it is comfortable to play on the Switch Lite, and I have been playing it there. It's not as convenient as it would be with a standard Pro Controller. However, it is doable. I'm not saying that you can't play games like Daemon X Machina on the Nintendo Switch Lite, but there are some games that just feel better with an actual Pro Controller and just play better that way. But other games like Zelda that just came out, like all of those games play phenomenally on the Nintendo Switch. I actually only played about the first dungeon on my original Nintendo Switch model from this game, and then just transferred the save file over to this and finished the game on my Switch Lite. And it's just been a much better experience, I think, for this game in particular, because there are games that are just going to feel better naturally in handheld, like we've got Pokemon Sword and Shield coming out, and Animal Crossing I've only ever played Animal Crossing on my Nintendo 3DS, so I feel it's more of a handheld game. That's just me. So it is cool being able to play them in just a handheld form and having a console dedicated to that, but that goes back to the luxury topic that I brought up earlier, where not everyone is going to have just a standard handheld system lying around. In terms of the way games play on this thing, all the games run awesome. I haven't had any problems where a game just doesn't run well on the Switch Lite. Everything runs really well. I've got Daemon X Machina here, and I'm sure it looks like garbage because of my setup. But everything runs great. Everything looks good. There's noticeably, especially in games like Link's Awakening, where you had a lot of noticeable frame drops, that was far less common on the handheld version. I actually said in my review that I preferred playing Link's Awakening in handheld because there was less frame drops and things like that. So I think a lot of the games are just going to run perfectly fine. I know on the Switch's release, Breath of the Wild actually had frame drops when the Switch was docked, and it played fine when it was in handheld. So overall, I don't think you're going to have any problems playing games handheld in regards to performance. But I think that pretty much covers my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Lite. I think this is an awesome system. It is amazing. It is well built. It feels great in your hands. I do think that there are some things that you could get for it that could make it even better. And I'm going to be covering that in a full accessories video coming later this week, along with the video covering the transfers of the saves between the Switch devices. So if you're interested in that, be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel, or follow me on Twitter for that kind of stuff, because all my channel updates will be there. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. I definitely recommend this if you do not have a Nintendo Switch. It is a great entry point. You can play all the games. I think it's worth it for the cost. $200, I mean, to play the huge library that the Switch offers, be able to play games like Skyrim, Doom, stuff like that on the go in this little package, that is just something that's really cool. And I think the release time of this was perfect with the release of Pokemon, since that's such a handheld-based game, that this is going to be something that a lot of people are going to be looking for this holiday season. A lot of people are going to be getting this for Christmas and stuff, so I think it's a great system. Personally, for me, I've loved it. I actually prefer playing this to my standard Switch most of the time. There are a couple games like Dead by Daylight where I'll still play on my OG Switch more than this, but most of the time I'm playing on this little guy here, and it has been an overall awesome experience, so I would recommend it. But that is all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and smash the subscribe button for more videos like this in the future. All my other social media will be on the screen somewhere around here, so be sure to check me out there if you want to see more stuff from me in the future, more channel updates, content on my Twitch and stuff like that. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.